If you want your ex back, you probably want it to happen now. And that's human. When something precious slips through your fingers, the instinct is to act, to fix it fast, to reclaim what was lost before it slips away. But love, especially a love that has been broken, doesn't operate on urgency. It flows in phases. And sometimes the shift that brings someone back to you unfolds far more slowly than your heart dares to hope. I've seen it firsthand. Working with hundreds of people navigating heartbreak, I've watched men win back the woman they believed was gone forever, sometimes months, even years after the final goodbye. This isn't about luck or trickery, it's about timing, clarity, and growth. Because here's the truth. Romantic love doesn't vanish just because time marches on. Sometimes it deepens with distance. Sometimes it's in the quiet, in the silence, where true realization takes root. So whether you're freshly wounded by a breakup or have been sitting in the stillness for far too long, this message is for you. Some signs appear early. Others take time to reveal themselves. But no matter how they come, you'll want to recognize them. If you find value in these words, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to Stoic Station, a place where we speak not to the crowd, but to the men who rise through reflection, not reaction. Let's begin. Sign number 1. The breakup was explosive, not empty. When a relationship ends in flames rather than silence, it often leaves you questioning everything. How something that once felt so deep could unravel in shouting matches, slammed doors, and words you wish you could take back. But here's the truth few people talk about. Chaos is often a sign that the connection was still alive, still charged with meaning. You don't raise your voice for someone who doesn't matter. You don't argue with someone you've stopped caring about, and you certainly don't cry over something that meant nothing. Emotional intensity, even when it's painful, is proof that the bond had weight. And in many cases, that intensity is what lingers long after the dust settles. Yes, the breakup may have been dramatic. It may have left you both bruised and confused. But that doesn't mean it was hollow. In fact, it usually means the opposite, that there was so much left unsaid, unresolved, unhealed. And those kinds of endings don't close doors completely. They leave them ajar, waiting for the right moment to reopen. When passion fuels a breakup, it's often because both people still care, even if they don't know how to show it in the right way. That unresolved emotion doesn't disappear. It simmers, and in time, once the heat cools and the emotions settle, it can draw someone back, slowly, quietly, unexpectedly. So if this sounds like your story, don't try to repair everything immediately. Don't chase or explain or overextend yourself. Let space breathe into the fire. Let time soften the harshness. Because sometimes it's not the breakup itself that ends a relationship. It's how both people evolve during the silence that follows. And when the emotion was real, the silence doesn't stay quiet forever. Sign number 2. Their new partner feels familiar. It's a strange moment. You're scrolling through social media, or a friend mentions it in passing, and there they are, your ex, smiling beside someone new. But what stops you cold isn't just the photo, it's the resemblance. Maybe it's the haircut, the way they dress, the career path, or the way they speak. Somehow this new person feels oddly familiar, uncomfortably so, almost like you. At first it's easy to take it as an insult, like you were just a template they're now trying to upgrade. You might wonder if you were ever truly special. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. They're not replacing you, they're repeating you. Because when people haven't truly moved on, they don't look for someone different. They look for the closest version of what they lost. It's not healing, it's reenactment. An unconscious attempt to recreate what once felt meaningful, hoping that maybe this time it won't end the same way. But it rarely works. because even the most familiar substitute can't replace the emotional depth you brought to the table, and eventually that absence becomes unavoidable. People don't model their next relationship after something they've forgotten. They mirror what they miss, often without realizing they're doing it. And when the new person doesn't laugh the same way, doesn't see through their walls the way you did, doesn't fit the same emotional rhythm, they'll feel it. That subtle, persistent ache of what used to be. So if you've seen this sign in your life, don't let it shake you. Let it confirm something deeper. You weren't just a chapter, they're still rereading your pages. And no matter how much they try to find pieces of you in someone else, the original is never easily replaced. Sign number 3, they're too stubborn to admit you were right. Yet, there's a certain silence that doesn't come from peace, it comes from pride. If your ex was the kind of person who always had to win, always had to be right, then chances are the breakup wasn't just about what went wrong, it was also about their inability to accept responsibility. Stubborn people have a unique way of protecting themselves. They'd rather lose something meaningful than admit they were the one who let it slip. You might have brought up something real before things fell apart. A warning, a need, a truth. But instead of meeting it with openness, they met it with resistance. Maybe they dismissed it, maybe they laughed it off, or maybe they turned it into an argument so they wouldn't have to face it. And now that you're gone, that truth doesn't disappear. It lingers, it echoes. And for someone as headstrong as they are, that echo is maddening. Silence, in this case, doesn't mean they've moved on. It often means they're still wrestling with the fact that they might have been wrong, and that you might have been right. But pride is a heavy weight. It keeps people frozen in place. It keeps their apology stuck in their throat and their vulnerability buried under excuses. The return won't be quick. Stubborn hearts don't change overnight. But time has a way of softening even the hardest defenses. And regret, slow as it may be, often arrives when no one's watching. So if they're quiet, don't mistake that quiet for closure. Sometimes the people who push you away the hardest are the ones who eventually look back and realize you were the only one who truly saw them and told them the truth they weren't ready to hear. Sign number 4, you still orbit the same social world. Sometimes life doesn't fully separate two people, even when love ends. You may no longer speak, but you still move in similar circles. You see their name pop up in group chats, their face in tagged photos, or run into them at the same places you once went together. It's not intentional. It's just the overlap of a shared world that neither of you has fully stepped out of. This kind of proximity does something subtle. It keeps you on each other's radar without pressure or performance. You're not chasing, you're not reaching out, but your presence lingers, not just in memory, but in reality. You exist in the spaces they still inhabit, and that alone can stir something unexpected. Familiarity doesn't always breed contempt. Sometimes it reawakens curiosity. Sometimes it reminds someone of what they miss. Shared communities offer low-stakes reconnection points. A passing hello, a quick smile across the room, mutual laughter in a group setting. These moments aren't grand gestures, but they're powerful because they're real. They're grounded in routine, in comfort, in the rhythm of normal life. And when handled with grace, not bitterness or manipulation, they can quietly reopen emotional doors that were never fully closed. So show up, not for them, but for yourself. Continue your life. Go to the places you love. Spend time with the people who matter, and allow your growth to be seen without saying a word. If they notice, and they will, it won't be because you forced anything. It'll be because they suddenly remember how it felt to be around you when things were good. Sometimes all it takes is presence, not pursuit, to remind someone that what they once had with you wasn't just a chapter, It was a part of their story they're not ready to let go of. Sign number 5. They're clearly trying to trigger jealousy. There's a certain kind of post-breakup energy that doesn't come from healing. It comes from theater. You see them suddenly more active on social media than ever, posing with people you've never seen, laughing a little louder in photos, going to places they never cared for before, and somehow it all feels carefully curated, designed to be seen by you. This isn't coincidence. It's not confidence. It's a calculated performance meant to provoke a reaction, because when someone has truly moved on, they don't need an audience. They don't go out of their way to craft an illusion of happiness or romance, and they certainly don't care whether or not you are watching. But when they're still emotionally tethered to you, they'll try to pull your attention back by any means necessary, even if that means pretending they've never been better. It's not about their new life. It's about your old place in it. They want to know if they can still make you feel something. Jealousy, anger, regret, any emotion at all will do, because in their mind, any response means you're still invested. But here's where your real strength shows. You don't take the bait. You don't comment. Don't scroll twice. Don't bring it up with mutual friends. You let their carefully staged happiness meet the quiet, unshakable calm of your indifference. And that contrast? It's powerful. It unsettles them more than any jealous reply ever could. Because when someone tries to spark jealousy and all they're met with is silence, they're forced to face the truth. Maybe you've outgrown the game. Maybe you're not watching anymore. And maybe, just maybe, that's the moment they realize they still care, while you've already moved forward. Sign number 6. They still reach out on meaningful days. There's a certain weight to a message that arrives unprompted. On your birthday, the anniversary of your first trip together, or even on a quiet holiday you once celebrated as a couple. It might seem simple, even polite. Just a "hope you're well" or "thinking of you today." But beneath those words often lives something deeper. Because timing matters. And when they reach out before you post anything, before the world reminds them it's a significant day, it means they remembered all on their own. Not out of obligation, not because they saw your name on a feed, but because some part of them still holds space for you. People don't set mental reminders for someone they've left behind. They don't carry those dates in their mind unless those dates still carry meaning in their heart. And reaching out, even briefly, is often a quiet attempt to reconnect. Not through grand gestures, but through subtle emotional signals. Maybe they want to test the waters. Maybe they miss the way it felt. Maybe they just want to be seen by you again, even for a moment. Whatever the reason, those small messages aren't meaningless. They're proof that not everything has been forgotten. And in some cases, they're the first thread being pulled in a story that might not be finished yet. Sign number 7. They left the breakup open-ended. Not every goodbye is meant to be permanent. Some don't arrive with anger or betrayal, but with hesitation, with heavy hearts, and words that sound more like pauses than endings. You remember how it went. There was no yelling, no resentment, just the quiet ache of timing that wasn't on your side. Phrases like, "maybe one day," or "if things were different," or "I still love you," but aren't conclusions. They're bookmarks, and bookmarks exist to hold a place when the story isn't finished. These kinds of breakups don't come from toxicity. They come from life, from a job that moved one of you across the country, from the weight of family obligations, from inner work that hadn't yet been done. And when love is real but circumstances aren't aligned, both people walk away not because they want to, but because they feel they have to. That kind of ending lingers. It doesn't dissolve. It sits quietly in the background of your lives, waiting. Sometimes months go by, sometimes years, but the feelings don't always fade. They mature, and with time the very things that once stood in the way begin to shift. Priorities change, Healing happens, distance closes, and suddenly the once impossible timing starts to feel possible again. If your breakup sounded more like a delayed "see you later" than a final farewell, don't be surprised if the door never truly shut. People don't speak with that kind of softness unless they still feel something. And life, when met with patience, has a way of circling back to what was unfinished. Not to repeat it, but maybe, just maybe, to do it right the second time. Sign number 8. They're still single, and it's not for lack of options. Time has passed. Maybe months, maybe more. And in that space you've likely wondered, have they moved on? Are they with someone new? You brace yourself for the answer, only to discover they're still single. And not because they haven't had the chance, they've had options. People have come and gone, flirtations, first dates, maybe even someone who, on paper, seemed like a better match. But no one has stayed. No one has settled into the space where you once lived in their life, and more importantly, in their heart. That kind of emptiness says more than it seems. It's not that they're broken. It's not that they're emotionally unavailable. It's that they're measuring everyone else against a memory that still holds weight. And nothing so far has been able to replace it. Some people move on quickly, eager to fill the silence. But others, especially those who felt something real, struggle. Not because they're stuck in the past, but because they recognize the depth of what they had. They know they were seen, known, loved in a way that wasn't superficial or easy to duplicate. And once you've experienced that, casual just doesn't feel right anymore. Still, don't mistake their singleness as an open invitation. It's not always a signal to reach out. Instead, it's a quiet indicator of internal reckoning. They may not be texting you at 2 a.m. or liking your posts, but they're thinking, replaying moments, remembering who you were to them, and more importantly, who they were when they were with you. This kind of reflection doesn't spark immediate action. It builds slowly. It brews beneath the surface. But over time, that silence starts to feel less like peace and more like absence. And absence, when paired with clarity, creates a gravitational pull that's hard to ignore. So if they're still alone, not because no one wants them, but because no one has been you, there's a reason. Sometimes the longer the silence stretches, the deeper the reconsideration becomes. And eventually they may realize what you always knew. Some connections aren't meant to be replaced, only remembered, until they're ready to be reclaimed. Sign number 9. They insist on just being friends. They say they just want to be friends. They text from time to time, check in on how you're doing, laugh at your jokes like nothing ever truly broke between you. Maybe they even suggest meeting up, just coffee, nothing serious, no pressure. But there's something unspoken underneath it all, something in the way they look at you or how their voice softens when they say your name. It doesn't feel like friendship. It feels like hesitation wearing a mask. When an ex pushes for friendship after a breakup, it's not always manipulation. Sometimes it's uncertainty. It's not that they don't feel something, it's that they don't yet know how to deal with what they feel. Just friends becomes a way to stay tethered to you without making promises they're not sure they can keep. It's not a full re-entry into your life, but it's not a full departure either. It's limbo, a place of testing the waters on their terms. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake this nearness for progress. You'll think it's safe to dive back in, when in reality, they're still figuring out if they can swim. That's why boundaries matter. Not as punishment, but as protection, yours and theirs. Because when one person knows exactly what they want, while the other is still confused, emotional imbalance is inevitable. You might crave certainty while they offer only moments. You might want clarity while they keep it just vague enough to avoid the real conversation. But that doesn't mean you have to slam the door shut. Just don't walk back in blindly. Let the connection breathe. Let the reconnection be real, not rushed. Let the friendship unfold only if it respects your worth and doesn't ask you to downplay your desire for something deeper. Sometimes friendship is a bridge. Other times it's a trap. And only patience, presence and self-respect can show you the difference. If they truly want to come back, they won't linger in the safety of friendship forever. At some point they'll step forward, clearly, fully, and without disguise. Until then, keep your heart steady, your eyes open, and your standards unshaken. Because the man you've become deserves more than half steps and emotional crumbs. He deserves the real thing, or nothing at all. If you've made it this far, if you've recognized even one of these signs in your own story, then let me speak to you as someone who's been there. Not just as a man, but as someone who's wrestled with the silence, the unfinished conversations, the sudden texts, the lingering hopes, and the constant questioning of what it all means. I've learned that in relationships, especially with women we once loved deeply, not every ending is absolute. Some breakups leave scars, others leave space, and some, like the ones described here, leave doors open, quietly waiting for time, clarity, and courage to return. Each of these signs isn't a promise she'll come back, but they are windows into the emotional truths she may not yet have the words or the willingness to express. Whether it's the emotional heat of a messy breakup, the strange familiarity of her new partner, or her need to stay close through friendship, these behaviors speak more loudly than most men realize. But here's what matters more than reading her signs: reading yourself. Are you healed? Are you growing? Are you still anchoring your worth in her recognition? Or have you begun to reclaim it for yourself? Because while these signs might suggest she still feels something, your role isn't to chase validation through them. Your role is to stand firm in your evolution, whether she returns or not. The life lesson: not every almost needs closure. Not every reconnection is meant for romance. And not every woman who misses you is ready to love you the way you deserve. So what do? You become a man she cannot access through convenience anymore. You become a man whose peace is not baited by jealousy, whose value isn't defined by being chosen again. You let her actions speak, yes, but you let your standards respond. If she returns, let it be because she's grown, not just because she's lonely. And if she doesn't, let it be because the universe made space for someone more aligned with the man you've become. You don't control who remembers you, but you do control who gets to stay in your life once they realize they can't forget you. And that is the strength you carry forward. All right, gentlemen, that wraps up today's video. If you saw yourself in these signs, remember this: not all endings are final, and sometimes the silence just means there's still something left unsaid. But don't wait around hoping. Focus on who you're becoming, not who you're missing. If you choose to reach out, do it with clarity and strength, not from a place of lack. If this resonated with you, like the video, subscribe to Stoic Station and drop a comment below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.